Hi everyone, Bernard here on behalf of Movie Game Nostalgia, and it's nice to do a game that's almost 60 years old that I used to play with my mates as a kid. Formula One, there's different versions as well, so this is the 1962 version with the old racing green car, but absolutely superb, isn't it? But that's that was only a couple of years after the 1964 version. Obviously I've got both versions. I think there's been more versions as well over time. But from the wonderful, obviously, Waddingtons, another Waddington game at the time with let's face it, as kids in the 60s and 70s, I mean, the Waddingtons games, what we were all sort of after, really, wasn't it? They were the things now, obviously, at the time. Yeah, so it's nice to look at this one. Formula One from Waddingtons, which... as you say, it's been updated over time, etc., etc., and it's still popular now. This game, I've been on Board Game Geek, and it still get good. It's still people play it now and get it from charity shops or buy it online. Still give it really good reviews. I mean, it gets anywhere. I think it's got 400. I think there's about 600 reviews, and 461 actually score it 6 or more, with quite a lot of higher scorers than 6. Obviously, on Amazon, there's only 5 reviews on Amazon of this game, Formula One. But they're all 100% reviews because it's so clever. I mean, there is dice used, but it's such a clever game to play. So I'm just going to have a quick look at it today. I'm not going to go into any great depth on it, but just to show you what it is, because there's lots out there online. But you have to be careful because it's one of those games that got some little contents that are fiddly. So make sure it's all complete conditions enough out there. I've got it on my website, moviegamenostalgia.com. So I've got this 64 version, 62 version. This is the 64 version, both fully complete with all the items, which I'll show you anyway. So be careful when you're buying online, because some don't have all the components. So be careful. But it is a great game, and it's a game up to 6 players. But you can have more. It's like anything. You can buy more cars or use other things to play instead of cars, and it can get quite busy because the track's only quite narrow at certain places. But the more the merrier, but obviously they do say 6 players, but 2 to 6 players, but you can have more. You can tweak it as well. You can play different versions of it and add to it and change the rules a little bit and do what you want with it. But just play the basic game first of all, then you'll enjoy it for what it is. Let me just put this down now just to show you. It's a massive board. I mean, it is a really big board, so obviously we're having to fit it all on the little camera there. But it's a great board. There's the track with the start and the finish. So with this game, because you're taking goals, the game only finishes once everyone's had the goal. So yellow always starts first, and you go clockwise when you're playing with your players, if you've got the 6 players. And obviously, it's whoever gets to the checker. You can have as many laps as you want. I mean, obviously, it's quite a long game if you have lots and lots of laps. But obviously, they do recommend just playing 3 laps of the game. So I'll just get that a bit more central for you. Do recommend you playing 3 laps of the game, but as I said, everyone has to have the go till they get to the checkered flag, because obviously if yellow gets there first, I mean, really it's unfair on blue, isn't it? So blue has to take his move as well and see if he can beat yellow past the checkered flag. So it's really, there's the basic board. You've got a plot, penalty chart that comes in handy when you're going through these red zones. So you got all these spin-off points or all speed limits on the different zones. And it is really, really good. There's your pits. You have pit stops as well, which I'll tell you about. Let's have a look at some of the components we've got as well with it. And of course, you've got the dice. So you have 2 dice, but say you don't roll the dice to play the game. You only roll the dice when you go through a penalty spot to see what penalty you incur. If you incur a penalty at all, there's the option you don't incur penalties. But you've got the cars. The cars are absolutely only tiny. You can have bigger ones. I've seen bigger ones, but great little car. But that I've seen, I mean, they're really well put together, actually. There's some of the newer versions, the cars aren't as nice. And obviously, if you look at the grid there, when you start putting your cars on, they're not all going to fit on. They're actually wider than the square, which is not brilliant, to be honest with you. It's a bit of a thing at the time. You thought, well, they could have done that a bit better, couldn't they? And made the squares a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's only a fiddly little problem. It's not a big deal. You can always, you know where you're going. So you got your 6 cars. As I say, you can play with more and have them, Or you can have throw the dice. Whoever gets the highest scores, have a staggered start. Can't you? Like in certain races where you can have obviously the best players at the front. I mean, if you have a championship, if you award yourself points for this, etc. Obviously whoever's in leading the championship starts off further ahead. So there's ways of doing it, and the youngest player perhaps starts at the front, and the oldest player starts at the back. So there's always different ways of playing it, obviously. But you're all supposed to start originally on the first thing. The next great thing you've got are obviously the speedos, the dials, which show the various things. You've got a tyre gauge there, and obviously certain things are going to happen as you drive around that is going to increase the wear on your tyres. So that's the gauge, and obviously you'll start at 0. A lap indicator, as I say, it's showing up to 10 laps, which will take a long time to play the game. But obviously, most, as I say, they're playing up to. They do recommend play up to 3 laps. But you, as long as you're having fun, play as many laps as you want. As long as you do it at the start. You've also got the brake gauge, which obviously the wearing of the brakes, depending if you have to brake in certain circumstances. If you're blocked by another car, for example, you might have to brake. So that's the gate. Again, once it gets to the number 5, that's where you have to go into the pits. That's where the pits come into play. And of course, you got your speedometers. To say there's no dice throwing, and you can actually only ever increase your speed up to 60 miles an hour. So if you're on 60 miles an hour, you can't go straight to 160, not unless you tweak the rules yourself. You can only go up in increments of 60, so 120, then you can only go up to a maximum of 160. I mean, you could say 180, you could do that as 180, again, tweaking the rules for yourself, couldn't you? So you got speedometers. These are very important. Every player keeps one of those in front of them, so you know exactly how fast you're going. The other 2 elements of the components, you've got pit cards. The pit cards which will sit there. And what that is when you go into the pit, certain circumstances may apply. So once your gauges have gone to the maximum, you need to call into the pit. And you do have to get on the right number on your pit as well. So you do have to time it when you're moving along, that you get to the right thing. Otherwise, you fly past and you can't do anything until the next time round. So, again, you have to be spot on getting into your own pit space. But things happen on the pit cards. So you got the pit cards. You are being black flagged for heavy oil leak and are a danger to other drivers. Miss a move, so that could stop it. Obviously, you miss a move. Good pit work. Starting speed 80 miles an hour. So, yeah, as I said, usually your speed is always 60 miles an hour. So you could get benefits. Slow tyre change, miss one move. So that's your pit cards when you go into the pits. And as I said, because these gauges will, throughout the game, alter, you will have to, unless you're very, very lucky or play it very, very safe, and then you won't win the game anyway, probably, if you're playing it safe. You do need to get into the pits at some stage. Once you get into the pits, everything goes back to 0. So obviously, if your tyre wear gauge is at the maximum and your brakes are at the maximum, obviously once you've been in the pits, you go back to 0 and you can start again. So it's like real motor racing, obviously. Tactics cards, you're given tactics cards before the games, and these are good things you can play throughout the game. You're given 5 each, but obviously you can alter that from 4 each, or you can have it pot luck. You can just, every move, rather than taking a move, pick a tactic card up, and then you might be able to use it. So again, you can tweak it, but in the initial game, you give them 5 of these, and they can vary what happens with the tactic cards. You can have a fast gear change, move 2 spaces forward. So, and you play these before you move, so you can actually do that. You decide what you're going to play, but the other players don't know what tactic cards you've got. You play these throughout the game. Speed gain by slipstreaming, move 3 spaces forward. So you can take your move and get extra bonus. So you've got your tactic cards there. If you look at the rules, they're quite simple. It's only 8 pages of rules, so they're not overly complicated. And it's racing, so your cars, if you block, say, obviously the first move is always 60 miles an hour. So the very first move, everyone's going to move 60. So everyone's going to move, each one of these squares is 20 miles. So they're all your cars are going to move onto that. That's how you're going to be after the first round, unless you play a tactic card and obviously increase it, move forward to, but it's up to you. But you can only do it in line with, obviously, your own move. So what happens? So as you're playing the game, what happens when you get to here? What happens when you got the 4 in front of you? Well, obviously, depending on what speed they're going, if you end up behind them, if your black car ends up behind them, you have to actually put your speed down to to actually. So if you're behind the orange car, you would have to check what speed the orange guy is going with this speedometer. So everyone's got their own speedometer. There's the orange one. And if the orange guy was going 80 miles an hour, and you're black, the black one or the dark one, obviously more grey than black. But obviously, if you're going 120 miles an hour, obviously you move up behind him. You can only go back to 80 when you start off, when he clears out of the way. So it's tactics. And if he's actually going faster than you, if Orange was going 120 and you were only going 60, and you go up behind him, that means you can automatically put your gauge up to 120. So when Orange moves, you can move up to 6 squares, 120 per thing. So this way, it's all tactical. It's all tactical ways of doing it. You can get blocked in, etc. You have to time it. You have spin-off points. So once you go through a red zone, if you go through a red zone that's 100 and you're going 120 miles an hour, obviously, even if you pass through it, you've still got to pay the penalty. So there's a penalty chart. So you throw the 2 dice, 3, score 3, and you find out what your penalty or spin off. Do not alter gauges. So you would end up having to put your car back there and be in the spin off point until your next go. So there's all spin off points, there's chicanes, there's water, different spin off points. That's basically the game. You need your lap indicators. Obviously, once the game starts going, you just need to remember what lap you're on, what lap you're on. But this is a really good game. I say it's tactics. The dice only come into it when there's a jeopardy, when something's happened. So, as you can see, it is a really good game that has stood the test of time, and it's still. As kids, we used to love playing it. And we used to put a dice element into it as kids as well, where we'd move 4 spaces. You can't jump cars, obviously. You can only zigzag. You can only, you can't move sideways as a car. Obviously, if you've got the cars lined up like that, and you're there, obviously you can't go sideways, but you can go diagonally. So you go 1, 2, 3. Obviously, they move up 60, then you bolt. Or you could just arrange to sit behind the car. So there's different ways of doing it, but your speedo decides what speed you're going and what you're up to. So there's quite a lot of forward thinking, and as kids, I think we enjoyed this because it is strategy. There's a lot of strategy. There's always luck, like any game, but as you can see, using these dials, it is a great little game, and I really. This is what happened. This is what happens. One of my little dials has fallen off there. See the little dial? So let's just find the speed. So as you say, when you're buying this game, just make sure, there you go, it's there. Everything's right. So that just goes on that dial there. So it's okay. It just doesn't fit on as good as it should do. That's all. Just press it on a bit more. So that's what you have to be careful, because there's lots of these on the internet, but you've got to make sure that all the dials are in good working order. So there you go. So that's on there quite happily now. Just make sure all the bits, because it is easy to lose those bits. Formula One from Waddingtons, a 1960s original game. Absolutely fantastic. One of my favourites. If you've never played it, please. They are on the internet anywhere between £19 and £40, again, depending on the time of year. I'd say I've got this 1962 version. It's a 62 version. And as I've shown you before, we've also got the 1964 version as well, which is that's the box there. And there are 70s versions of this as well. And there's a couple of modern updates for. I think Formula D is a similar update to this game as well. A game called Formula D. But Formula One from Waddingtons, classic, absolutely brilliant. One of my favourites as a kid. And even now, I just want to find people to play this with now. Just have really good fun with it. So you can have championships. You can obviously give yourself points when you finish it. And then, as I said, you could have staggered starting. You can tweak the rules as much as you want. But even the basic game is good fun. But again, it's easy to tweak the rules. Anyway, thanks for watching this today. Please, if you enjoy these little reviews and out of the box specials I do on games, please. Push the old subscribe button. That's great. Push the bell notification. Give us a thumbs up. It's nice to get thumbs up and get appreciated. Leave your comments below what you think, if you've played this game or you remember playing this game when you were younger. If you're an old guy like me and you played it in the 60s when it first came out, absolutely superb. Please let me know in the comments below. Follow me on Twitter at nostalgia_movie, and also on Facebook at Bernard Deneen, DINNWN, with links to Movie Game Nostalgia, my website for board games, old and new, old and new, some newer ones, posters, and obviously rare DVDs. If you can go on there and have a look around, great. It's good for football, good for Google Analytics and all this sort of thing. So I appreciate that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little look with me today at, possibly up there in my top 5 games of all time. Formula One from Waddingtons. Thank you so much for watching. Whatever you do with the rest of your day, have a great one. Look after yourself, look after your friends, and more importantly, look after your family. And hopefully I'll see you all for a special, or a movie special, or a movie poster special, or if you're into football, one of my Manchester City vlogs as well. If you're into Manchester City, please join me for one of them. And hopefully join for another game special quite soon. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you all again very soon. Bye-bye.